KISS is known pretty much as an LA group, and they came here to record an album. And we're going to show pictures of the drum booth. But could you kind of tell us where they were set up? Do you remember where they were set up? Or because it's not, like a huge...
Well, everybody's sets up different. Charlie Daniels did an album in here without that room. And just had a lot of Marshall amps and stuff in different places. But Chad Atkins has been in here. That made me feel good.
Did he record?
Yes, he was on a Newberry album. Newberry convinced him that nobody could play like him, and he had to come out and play on this one song. So that was a feather in my hat.
Was he complimentary when he was here?
Oh, yes, yes. But Chet and I got along fine once we got past the plumber thing. And he cut 3 or 4 of my songs. And he's a tremendous mentor.
Talk about some of the engineers. You mentioned Neil Wilburn as being the first
Neil
engineer.
Neil wired up the first UA console we had in here and did the Fair and Young stuff and all that on 2-track. Then we got a 4, which had a 3-track head assembly for it. And it's a Scully. It's over in Studio C. We don't have a Studio A because none of them ever had any soul. This is B, that's C. Anyway, Neil Wilburn, Tom Knox, Paul Scala, both of which worked for Flickinger.
Yeah, both of those guys worked
Both
for
of them helped to build the console that's in there. So they knew how to do maintenance on it and everything. So, but Gene Eichelberger was a tremendous help. And he had the best set of ears, I guess, that's ever been in here. I don't care if you came in here with a tuba or what you had. He'd come out and listen to it in the room and say, okay, and he'd go back in there. He didn't know how to...
I told you, Gene gave me my first job in this town.
Really?
And you said, yes.
I gave Gene his first job.
Right. I wanted to
And he had gone to every studio in town. They said, no. He was ready to give up and go home, back to Ohio. And I said, sure, I'll give you a job. But he went on to work at Quad and cut a whole bunch of big records. And,
indeed, the lineage from Quad goes straight back to this place with David Briggs, Norbert Putnam, Gene Eichelberger being so involved here during the area code 615 days. Then they went over to Quad and just kind of continued. In
Briggs and Pup both would say, what kind of speakers are those?
Mm-hmm.
What do you use that mic for? And that's the same thing I did to Bill Vandervoort and, a bunch of engineers downtown. But I was a big fan of engineers. And on this Area Code 615 album, you'll notice there's a patch cord hanging around my neck. And every time I went to RCA, I'd wear that, And they'd say, hey, I don't live here with that patch cord. That's my patch cord, Hoss. That came from Cinderella. Oh, okay, fine. So
what year did, like for instance, KISS, what was the groups that were coming in from New York and LA, when did they start recording here? What year was that?
Well, let's see. I could tell you better. A lot of women say, well, I had a baby was 2 years old. I had an 8-track machine when Linda Ronstadt came in. I had an 8-track machine when Mickey Newberry cut here. We did the first Area Code album on an 8-track. So that was after the PR-10 and after the Scully 4 tracks and all that.
So were you one of the first studios in this area to have a 1-inch 8-track?
I don't know about the 8, but I was one of 3 that had a 24. And there was Flickinger, like Robert told you, I told him I wanted a 16-track and 4 extra buses. No, you want a 24. I said, well, I can't afford it. He said, I'm going to charge you the same thing for a 24 that I will for the 16. Now just shut up and do it my way. Okay. So he got that monstrosity patch bay in there that's got everything in the world on it. And, like I said, automation and stuff that I don't even use. He was way ahead of his time.
Explain why the track assign is on the left side of that console.
Because I have long fingernails on my right hand to play guitar with.
And normally that would have been on the right side of the console.
It would have been on the right side, and I didn't want to break my nails, so I said, put it over here, and he said, okay. So he reversed it. It's the only flick board ever made that way. Eventually, they got around to having a tote board on the wall that you could say 1 to 6.
That's the
4
way
to 17.
Ray Stevens, I remember that being that way on the back wall there.
But
so talk about the Flickinger console. How did you think it compared to the Columbia and RCA consoles of that day? Did it
it's
sound
just so
as
far
good
ahead
or
of its
better?
time. They don't even get in the mix. I mean, I remember going to RCA one time way back, and Bill Vandervoort was mixing, and I said, I need more highs on this. And he said, okay. And he goes like this. I said, no, not less, more.
Mm-hmm.
He said, that's the way we get more. We turn down the bass, and it gives more treble. I said, boy, that's okay. Anyway, the Flickinger console has 3 EQs on it, and they're all like wah-wah pedals. So if you got let's say you got a bass note that's sticking out, and you want to calm it down, make it like the rest of them, you plus 15, and then you look for it with the other until you find it, and it blows you away. You say, okay, then minus 15. Okay, now that everything's even. It's got one for mid-range, high frequencies, and low frequencies. And it's got shelving, or it's got, whatever you want on it.
But it's a continually swept range. It's
it's just like,
it's not stepped. Mm-hmm.
So back then, custom consoles were very rare. Can I ask what it cost for a Flickinger console back then?
Seemed like it was $70,000.
Which was a lot back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quite a bit. This predates I think most of the Neves, certainly all the MCIs and Harrisons that were later to come.
You get 3 or 4 houses for that.
Oh yeah, back then.
It was either 60 or 70 grand, I forget. But I sunk a bunch of my session money into it, and said, this is what I want to do. So I quit doing sessions in downtown, and one day I got a call from Dolly Parton, Porter Wagner, and Felton Jarvis all on the phone at the same time. What do you mean you quit doing sessions? I said, well, I want to run my studio and, pursue my band. And I did a couple after that. I went down to Woodland, did the Oak Ridge Boys, and we're dubbed on Porter and Dolly's session at Fireside. But other than that, I never went back downtown. I was having too much fun here.
Talk about, I read in the Sound on Sound article, interview with you, briefly tell the story of how you dealt with neighbors when they complained.
I bought their house and had a guy with a CB radio that owned one over there. And I said, what do you take for that CB? He had a 100-watt linear. Mm-hmm. So every time he'd hit breaker, and the earphones would go crazy. And Butcher would sling his phones across the room. That's driving me crazy. So I said, what do you take for that? And so he sold me his CB radio and linear. And then I just bought his house. So his house had a garage, which is now the drum room.
It backed right up to your...
It backs up to mine, so we built a little hall that connects the two. And 8 tracks of the 24 are drums. And so we get a tremendous drum sound. But it's completely isolated from anything that's going on in here acoustically.
Okay. So they can't see each other? No.
And we don't need a whole lot of eye contact. I mean, we could have used cameras and stuff, but we can hear what's going on.
Yeah.
So we've never felt the need to have those. This piano was used by Ray Charles on Hee Haw, and they brought him a 5.2 Yamaha. He asked him what kind he wanted, and he said, I don't care. And so they brought him a 5.2, and he said, it ain't big enough. Okay, the guys hauled it out, hauled this one in, and they scratched it a little bit on the side and knocked off $1,000, and so they should have added 1,000 because Ray Charles played it. But it's the brightest piano in Nashville. And the microphones live inside.
What kind do you use inside?
What kind of mics?
Mm-hmm.
Electro Voice. And I've got a Leslie up there that's in 2 pieces it's mic'd separately, highs and lows.
And that stays in that same
Stays
position
up there.
on it's on a mezzanine above the
Right.
room we're in.
Is that the 140?
I don't know what the number on it is, but it's. I know that it's always been a problem trying to separate the highs and lows of a Leslie because they're all in the same cabinet. Well, these aren't in the same cabinet; they're separate.
Ah.
So the
Cool.
the high end has its own.
The drum booth originally was in this room.
Yeah, right there.
And back then, how many mics did you use?
Not near as many. We had a lot of miking techniques, having a mic on the snare on the bottom and the top, and different things, and a snare this big. And
so, I mean, when you were on 8-track, did you have maybe 3 mics that you took down to 1
something
track?
like that.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
I noticed when we were outside this morning, there are 2 white buildings in the backyard. Explain what those are.
All right, those are echo chambers, and I was picking the brain of Bill Vanderbilt one day, and I said, "Man, I love this RCA echo." I said, "What is that? A plate? No, that's a room." I said, "Okay. You wouldn't want to show me that room, would you?" He said, "No, they'd fire me if I did that." Well, he's dead now, so yes, he showed them to me. They can't fire him. And he said he designed those, and there was a mic in one corner and a speaker in the other. And he said the secret is no 2 parallel walls, because anytime it hits something, it has to bounce off. And I said, "Okay, if you had to do over again, what would you do?" And he said, "I'd make it a third larger." And I said, "Okay," and I got me a bricklayer, and I said, "I want you to build me 2 rooms with no 2 parallel walls, and so it's this way and this way, And he said, "Wait a minute, I spent all my life trying to learn how to build things square, and you want it crooked." I said, "Yes." So he did that. Didn't understand it, but you could go in there and do this, and it would ring for 6 seconds. That's a long time, buddy. And so if you start putting chairs and things in there, then it'll calm it down. But when Mickey Newberry was out here, he decided that he wanted rain and trains and stuff on his album. Looks Like Rain was the name of one of the albums. And he wanted crickets. Got to have crickets. So we went out and bought some at the bait shop and put a mic on them, and they wouldn't chirp. Turned out all the lights, they still wouldn't chirp. I said, "Let's put them in the echo chamber." He said, "Okay." They still wouldn't chirp. He said, "Let me go out there and adjust them a little bit." So he takes them and does this. And to this day, there's crickets in there. We named them all Mickey. And so we can't use it anymore because everybody doesn't like crickets on their record. This is where a lot of people got their start. The whites were between labels, and got a demo and had 5 chart records off of it. Karen Taylor Good had 13 chart singles in a row out of here. And it's been a good trip. I enjoyed it. And
the small size of the studio
sounds a lot bigger than that, doesn't it?
It's the sheer number and quality of artists that have been through the studio is amazing. You'd never know it from the small size.
Yeah, especially where they came in from out of town.
Mm-hmm. All right, I think we need to.
Yeah.
John Moss engineered some here too, and Steve Smith.
Your son, John Moss.
Yeah, and he did some of the barefoot stuff.
Steve Smith does most of the maintenance with Robert.
He does all the maintenance, and he's engineered a few sessions over here himself. Never been in a phone book, and so you have to know who we are and where we are to even find the place.
Bill and I want to thank you very much.
It's my pleasure
for letting us do this. We really appreciate it, Wayne.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.